All right, let's dive into some real wisdom today. We're talking about executive coach Marshall Goldsmith. The guy who literally wrote the book on what got you here won't get you there.
Yeah, that's the one.
And in this talk he gave at Google, he tackles how already successful people, those at the top of their game, how they can actually get in their own way.
Like, they've already achieved so much, but there's
Yes.
still this gap.
Exactly. And he starts off with this stat that's both funny and kind of scary. 85% of his successful clients, these are high achievers, right? They believe they're in the top 20% of their peer group.
Oh, wow. So most of them have this, like, inflated sense of where they stand.
Yeah, it's like this delusion of success.
Okay, but if you think you're already at the top, why change? What's the point?
That's the thing, right? But Goldsmith argues, even the best of us have habits that are holding us back.
Interesting.
So he focuses on what we need to stop doing, not just what we should start doing.
Kind of counterintuitive, isn't it? You'd think it'd be all about do more of this, more of that.
Right. But he says, nope. First, let's clear out the bad stuff.
Makes sense?
He calls them annoying habits, which I think is pretty relatable. And the first one is this tendency to win too much. And he has this great example about a couple arguing over where to eat.
Oh, I can see where this is going.
Right. The one who loses the argument ends up just picking apart the food all night.
Yeah, proving their point, even if it ruins the whole dinner.
It's funny because we've all been there, but it also highlights how this need to be right, even in small things, can actually damage relationships. You win the argument, but at what cost?
Right, it's about the bigger picture, and this definitely applies to work, too. Think about that colleague who always has to have the last word. Are they really winning in the long run?
Okay, so winning too much is out. What's the next habit Goldsmith wants us to ditch?
It's adding too much value, which sounds kind of positive at first glance.
Right, who wouldn't want to add value?
But he's saying it's often disguised as well-intentioned improvements that actually end up demotivating others.
I know exactly what you mean. It's that colleague who always has to, tweak your presentation.
Yeah.
Or add their 2 cents to your idea. Like, you're trying to be helpful, but it comes across as condescending.
Oh, totally. And Goldsmith says it often comes from this need to show off intelligence or feel superior. It's not really about helping the other person.
Ouch. That's kind of harsh. So how do we catch ourselves doing this? Because I know I've been guilty of it before.
It's about being honest with yourself. Ask yourself, is this truly helpful, or am I just trying to make myself look good?
Hmm.
And if you're on the receiving end, try setting boundaries. You can say something like, thanks for the input, but I'm good for now.
All right, good advice. Adding too much value check. What's the last annoying habit on Goldsmith's hit list?
Passing judgment. He's saying we need to help more and judge less, both at work and personally.
This one's tough, isn't it? It's so ingrained in us.
Yes.
It's easy to slip into judging others without even realizing it.
Totally. It's about shifting our focus from criticism to understanding. Instead of jumping to conclusions about why someone's doing something, try asking questions and actually listening to their perspective.
Now, this is where Goldsmith gets really interesting. He uses small amounts of money as a tool for behavior change. I got to admit, I was skeptical at first.
That's a lot unusual, right?
Yeah, how's that going to work?
So he has clients put money on the line every time they do one of these things. And here's the kicker. He donates the money to charity.
So there's no personal gain for him. It's purely motivational for his client.
Exactly. It's like a behavioral penalty box.
Do you have any examples of how this plays out?
He had one client who had a habit of making what he called destructive comments about colleagues. Goldsmith told him, every time you do that, it's $10.
Wow, so he had to pay every time he said something negative about a coworker.
Yep.
Talk about putting your money where your mouth is.
Another client had this thing about starting sentences with no, but, however, like instantly negating whatever the other person just said.
Oh, I hate that. $20 fine for that one.
Ouch.
And the results are pretty impressive. The destructive comments guy saw his score on a related metric jump from the 8th percentile to almost perfect.
Seriously, that's amazing. What about the no but however guy? Did he shape up?
He lost $420 in an hour and a half.
Ouch. But I guess it got his attention.
He said it was worth it because he finally realized how much that phrase was affecting how people saw him.
So even though it seems like a simple trick, there's this deeper awareness that comes from that consequence.
Absolutely. It makes you pay attention in a way that just talking about it sometimes doesn't.
That's it.
So are you ready to move on to one of Goldsmith's most well-known ideas?
Definitely lead the way.
Okay, let's talk feed forward. It's all about focusing on the future, not the past.
Right, I've heard about this. Instead of dwelling on past mistakes, it's about giving suggestions for improvement that are forward-looking.
Exactly. And Goldsmith actually did a fun exercise with his Google audience to show this in action.
Ooh, fun at Google. That's saying something. I'm picturing, like, beanbag chairs and slides in the office.
It wasn't quite like that. He had everyone pick one area they wanted to improve, like patience or listening skills, whatever. Then they had to go around and get suggestions from as many people as possible.
So it's like a rapid-fire exchange of ideas for the future.
Pretty much.
What were the rules? Was there, like, a time limit?
No feedback about the past was allowed, and no judging the suggestions either. You just had to listen and say thank you, even if you thought the idea was terrible.
That's tough. I'd be so tempted to, like, defend myself
Oh,
or explain why something wouldn't work.
right. But that defeats the purpose. The whole point is to be open to new ideas, even if they seem crazy at first.
I could see that. But did people actually enjoy this? Sounds like it could have gone off the rails pretty easily.
You might be surprised to hear that most people actually found it really fun and helpful.
Wow, really?
Goldsmith asked them why, and some really interesting reasons came up.
Okay, I'm all ears.
The first one was no baggage. Since the people giving suggestions didn't know your past, their input felt less personal, less judgmental.
Makes sense. You're not getting bogged down in old stories or assumptions about who you are.
Exactly. They also said they liked that it was fun and laughter. The exercise was playful and less serious than traditional feedback.
It's like they gamified personal development.
Right. What else did they like about it?
Let me think. I'm guessing it felt less hierarchical than, like, a performance review.
That's another one. Equality.
Yeah.
Everyone participated, both giving and receiving suggestions. So it felt like a two-way exchange, not a top-down critique.
I love that. It reinforces the idea that we all have room to grow, no matter where we are on the ladder. What were some of the other things they liked?
Another big one was no judging. That rule created a more open and creative atmosphere. People weren't afraid to throw out ideas because there was no risk of being criticized.
It's like brainstorming on steroids.
Exactly.
What was the last reason people liked it so much?
They got to hear diverse perspectives. Since they were talking to people from different backgrounds and with different experiences, the suggestions were often fresh and unexpected.
I'm starting to see why this feed-forward thing is so powerful. And this isn't just for the workplace, right?
Absolutely not. You can use it in your personal life, with your family, anywhere you want to improve.
Okay, so how would that work?
Imagine asking your partner, how can I be a better partner? And then just listening to their suggestions without getting defensive.
That sounds like a challenge, but I can see how it could be really valuable.
Definitely.
Now, what does Goldsmith have to say about coaching ourselves and others?
Well, he says we should regularly be asking ourselves, how can I be a better blank? Fill in the blank, manager, partner, friend, whatever.
Yeah, makes sense, but do people actually do that?
Not as much as you'd think. He shared this crazy stat asking for input ranks last in employee satisfaction surveys.
Really? That's surprising. Why are we so hesitant to ask for feedback?
He thinks it boils down to fear. We're afraid of the answers, afraid of what we might hear.
It's easier to just assume we're doing great than to risk hearing something negative.
Right. And to illustrate this point, Goldsmith tells a story about his own fear of going to the doctor. He put off getting a physical for 7 years.
7 years.
Because he was scared of what they might find.
Wow, I can relate to that. It's like we'd rather stay in the dark than face the possibility of bad news, even if it means missing out on information that could help us.
Exactly. And he uses that story to encourage us to look at our own avoidance behaviors. What are we avoiding? What feedback are we afraid to hear?
Sometimes facing those fears is the key to unlocking real growth. Now, I know Goldsmith's a big believer in follow-up, but why is it so important? We've all gotten feedback before, but how many of us actually follow through on it?
It's easy to get excited about a new idea, but lasting change requires consistent effort, accountability.
So it's not enough to just have a good conversation. We have to actually put in the work.
And Goldsmith's research backs this up. He found that follow-up, not the initial feedback itself, made the biggest difference in whether people actually improved.
It's the long game, not the quick fix.
Exactly.
And this reminds me of what he calls the program of the year trap.
Oh, yeah, he's not a fan of those.
It's like every year there's a new buzzword, a new initiative, but it rarely leads to any real lasting change.
It's all sizzle, no steak.
Exactly.
And Goldsmith's point is that real change doesn't come from those flashy programs. It comes from consistent, deliberate action.
So it's not about finding the perfect program or the magic bullet. It's about figuring out what truly matters to you and then committing to the work, even when it's not trendy or exciting.
Now, before we move on to the next part, we have to talk about Goldsmith's closing exercise. Get ready for this one. He asks you to imagine yourself as a 95-year-old on your deathbed, giving advice to your younger self.
Okay, that got dark quickly, but I see where he's going with this.
It really forces you to think about your priorities.
And about what you'll regret if you don't make changes now.
He asks two specific questions. What professional advice would you give your younger self? And what personal advice would you give your younger self?
Powerful stuff. I remember when I first heard him ask those questions, I literally got chills.
It makes you think about what really matters, doesn't it?
It does.
And he's collected responses from thousands of people over the years. Some clear themes have emerged.
I'm curious, what did those wise 95-year-olds have to say?
The first theme, and it's a good one to start with, is be happy now. Don't wait for some future event or achievement to be happy.
Yeah, it's easy to fall into that trap. I'll be happy when I get that promotion or when I finally buy a house.
But happiness isn't a destination, it's a choice we can make right now.
It's about finding joy in the present moment, even when things are tough.
Exactly.
What was the second theme?
Friends and family.
Knew it.
At the end of our lives, it's not our jobs or achievements that we'll cherish. It's the people we love and the memories we've made.
He uses that powerful image of being on your deathbed, surrounded not by your coworkers, but by the people who truly matter to you.
It's a good reminder to prioritize those connections, not just in words, but in actions.
Spend time with your loved ones, tell them you care, make memories.
That's what matters.
Okay, so we've got be happy now and friends and family. What's the third theme?
Having the courage to go for it, to pursue your dreams, live a life without regrets.
Don't let fear hold you back from experiencing everything life has to offer.
Whether it's chasing a dream, taking a risk, or just trying something new, step outside your comfort zone.
It's about being true to yourself, even when it's scary.
And it's never too late to start.
It's about having the courage to be your true self, even when it feels hard.
Remember, it's okay to fail. In fact, failure is often part of the process.
It's about learning from those mistakes and trying again.
Exactly. Goldsmith's message is so inspiring.
It really is. And it's not just feel-good stuff. He gives you concrete ways to put these ideas into practice.
He goes beyond just giving you something to think about. He gives you a plan to do something.
That's what makes him such a great coach. He helps people understand themselves better, and he gives them the tools to change.
He wants his listeners to take control of their own growth, become the best versions of themselves.
It's a journey, not a destination.
And it's about continuous improvement, not perfection.
It's about being willing to learn and grow.
Exactly. It's about embracing the process and trusting that with effort, we can achieve great things.
This has been so insightful, and there's even more to come. We'll be back for the next part of our deep dive into Goldsmith's talk. Be sure to tune in for more actionable strategies and inspiring insights.
We'll be here. Until then, keep learning, keep growing, and most importantly, have fun. Welcome back.
Okay, so before we took that little break, we were getting pretty deep with Goldsmith's deathbed exercise.
That one really makes you think.
Yeah, for sure. But the good thing is, Goldsmith doesn't just leave us hanging with those existential questions. He actually talks about how to apply those insights to our lives, both at work and personally.
So how do we take those big ideas and make them practical?
Well, he uses this interesting framework. He says we should all strive to be leaders in every aspect of our lives.
And not just at work.
Right, not just with a fancy title. As parents, partners, friends, even just in our own personal growth.
So it's more about a way of being than a specific role.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about taking responsibility for our actions, showing up authentically, striving to be the best version of ourselves.
I like that.
And a big part of that, he says, is being willing to admit when we're wrong.
Oh, that's a tough one.
It is. We all make mistakes, and it's okay to own up to them.
Easier said than done sometimes.
Right. But Goldsmith has this great line. He says, if we want to blame someone for our mistakes, who's the best person to blame? You.
It's true. Ultimately, we're responsible for our own actions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not just about apologizing. It's about taking action to make things right.
So how do we do that?
Goldsmith encourages us to not only acknowledge our mistakes, but also to ask for input on how we can do better in the future.
Instead of dwelling on the past, focus on what we can learn from it.
Exactly. It's that feed-forward idea, in action again.
I'm seeing a theme here.
Right. Goldsmith also talks about involving others in our growth.
How so?
He suggests sharing our goals with people we trust and asking them to hold us accountable.
It's like having a personal board of directors for your life.
I love that analogy. It creates a support system, helps us stay motivated,
Makes sense.
especially when we hit those inevitable roadblocks.
We all need support sometimes.
We do. Now, Goldsmith, being a data guy, he shared some interesting research. He did a study with 86,000 people across 8 companies.
Okay, what did he find?
The people who improved the most
Yeah.
were the ones who consistently followed up. With the people who gave them feedback,
So it wasn't enough to just hear the feedback. They had to actively engage with it and make it part of their process.
exactly. It's like working out. You can have the best exercise plan in the world, but if you don't actually do it consistently, you won't see results.
Consistency is key.
It is. Goldsmith also talks about something he calls the program of the year syndrome,
I think we've all experienced that one.
especially in the corporate world.
It's that thing where everyone gets excited about the new initiative, but then it just fizzles out after a few weeks.
All buzzwords and no substance.
Right. And Goldsmith emphasizes that real change doesn't come from those programs. It comes from consistent, deliberate action, day after day, week after week.
So it's not about finding the perfect program. It's about putting in the work.
Exactly.
And he has some practical advice for how to do that.
Like what?
He says to find people you respect, whose opinions you value, and ask them for feedback on specific areas you want to improve.
So if I want to be a better listener, I should find someone known for being a good listener.
That's the idea. And be specific about what you want to work on. Instead of saying, how can I be a better communicator? Ask, what do you notice about my body language when I'm listening? Do I interrupt?
So get feedback that's actually actionable?
Exactly. And then, of course, the key is to follow up on that feedback and make those changes stick.
It all comes back to follow up.
It does.
Goldsmith stresses that this is where the real work happens. It's not about being perfect, it's about progress.
Small steps, consistent effort over time.
That's the formula.
Now, you mentioned earlier that Goldsmith's deathbed exercise was super powerful.
It really is.
It makes you step back and look at your life from a different perspective.
And ask those big questions.
Right, like, what am I really doing with my life? Am I living in alignment with my values? What will I regret if I don't make changes now?
And Goldsmith doesn't leave us hanging with those questions. He actually shares some of the common themes that emerged from the thousands of responses he's collected.
I'm really curious, what were those key takeaways?
Well, the first one is something we've touched on already. Be happy now.
Don't wait for the future to be happy now.
Exactly. He challenges the idea that we'll be happy when we achieve something. He says happiness is a choice we can make in this moment.
It's a good reminder to focus on the good things in our lives right now.
And to find joy in the simple things.
What was this second theme?
Friends and family.
Oh, I do.
At the end of our lives, it's not our work or our achievements that will matter most. It's the people we love and the memories we've made.
He talks about that image of being on your deathbed, surrounded not by your colleagues, but by your loved ones.
It's a powerful reminder to nurture those relationships and make time for the people who matter most.
Spend time with them, tell them you care, create memories.
Those are the things that will truly matter.
Okay, be happy now, and friends and family.
Yeah.
What about the third theme?
Having the courage to live a life without regrets.
So go for it, pursue your dreams, don't let fear hold you back.
Exactly. Whether it's chasing a dream, taking a risk, or just trying something new, step outside your comfort zone.
Embrace the unknown.
And remember, it's okay to fail. Failure is often a necessary part of the process.
It's about learning from those mistakes and trying again.
Exactly. Goldsmith even says, do what you think is right. You may not win, but at least you can look in the mirror and say, at least I tried.
It's about having the courage of your convictions, even when it's hard.
Now, here's something interesting Goldsmith brought up. He talked about asking our children for feedback.
Wait, asking our kids how we can be better parents.
Yeah.
That's an interesting idea.
It might sound strange at first, but it's a great example of applying these principles of feedback to our personal lives.
I can see how that would be challenging,
It takes humility for sure.
especially with teenagers.
But Goldsmith says it's one of the most important things we can do as parents.
He actually started doing this with his own kids when they were young.
He says their feedback helped him become a better father.
It's amazing how even the most successful people can still learn and grow.
Goldsmith encourages all parents to do the same. Ask your kids, what can I do to be a better parent? and then really listen to their answers, even when they're hard to hear.
It's about creating open communication and showing our kids that we're willing to learn.
And as Goldsmith points out, it's good for us too. It helps us become more self-aware, more empathetic, ultimately better human beings.
It also sets a great example for our kids, showing them that it's okay to make mistakes, to ask for help, and to strive to be better.
So are you ready for the final part of our deep dive?
Let's do it. Welcome back to the deep dive,
We're wrapping up our deep dive into Marshall Goldsmith's talk at Google.
where he really pushed us to think differently about success.
It's been quite a journey so far.
It has so many insightful ideas.
From that delusion of success thing to
Huh.
feed forward and, actually following through on what we learn.
And I think one of the biggest things for me has been how much Goldsmith emphasizes the human side of leadership.
Oh yeah, he's all about that.
He keeps saying that it's not about being perfect or having all the answers. It's about connecting with people authentically.
Building those real relationships.
Exactly. Relationships built on trust and respect, both at work and in our personal lives.
And letting go of the need to be right all the time.
Which, let's be honest, can be tough.
It can, especially if you're used to being in charge.
Right. But Goldsmith says, we can learn from anyone, regardless of their position or experience.
Remember that point he made about learning from people we don't even know that well?
Yeah, it challenges that whole idea that leadership is all about hierarchy.
Like the higher up you are, the more you know.
Exactly. Goldsmith believes everyone has something valuable to offer.
And the best leaders are the ones who are open to learning from anyone.
Another thing that struck me was how much he talked about having fun and not taking ourselves too seriously.
Whoa, I loved that part.
Remember that exercise where everyone had to run around getting feedback? It was chaotic, but so fun.
It was. And it was a good reminder that personal growth doesn't have to be all serious and intense.
It can be playful, engaging, even a little silly.
Which is a good thing to remember these days.
It is. We could all use a little more lightness and fun in our lives.
Okay, as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a few questions to ponder.
Sounds good. Hit me.
What are some of those annoying habits that might be holding you back? Those things you do that you know aren't really helping you.
Good one. And how can we start using that feed-forward idea more? Instead of focusing on past mistakes, how can we shift the conversation to future possibilities?
Love that. Here's another one. What's one area in your life, could be work or personal, where you could really benefit from asking for feedback and then actually following through on it?
That follow-up part is crucial.
It is. And finally, the big one. What advice would your 95-year-old self give you today?
If you could look back on your life from that perspective, what would you want to tell your younger self?
Goldsmith's talk is a powerful reminder that personal growth is a journey.
Not a destination.
It's about always striving to be better, not just for ourselves, but for those around us.
And it's about enjoying the process.
With enthusiasm, humility, and a little bit of humor.
So keep learning, keep growing, and keep asking those big questions.
And most importantly, have fun along the way.
That's it for this deep dive into Marshall Goldsmith's wisdom. Until next time, keep seeking knowledge and keep diving deeper.